Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming. We are the team from the University of Pennsylvania, and we are presenting on our district, the Eastern Connecticut State University. Next slide, please. Here's a quick agenda of what we'll be going through for the next 15 minutes. First, we'll do a quick introduction of each one of us, as well as our development philosophy. Then we'll go through our district use case, the Eastern Connecticut State University, as well as related incentive structures. Third, we'll take you through the system design, including a project snapshot and the utility scale battery installation we'll be putting on campus. Then we'll be going through the distribution system impact, addressing any interconnection concerns. Then the project development plan, discussing zoning compliance and equity considerations. And finally, the financial outcomes, addressing ownership, the partnership structure for financing the project, and the results related to this project. Next slide, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Caroline. I'm a senior at Penn, and I'm studying systems engineering and environmental science.
Hello, I am Dale Tran. I am a junior at Penn studying economics.
I'm Spencer Gibbs. I'm a junior at Penn as well, studying philosophy, politics, and economics. Next slide, please. Wonderful. So just going through kind of our development philosophy, kind of what our goals were going into this. Obviously, we're not doing the University of Pennsylvania's campus. So we wanted to identify a district that has specific sustainability goals that we could try to achieve through our project. In addition to that, we also wanted to have a project that we could actually start as soon as possible, had friendly regulations that were in favor of kind of being able to actually do this project. And a really key kind of decision-making feature for this project for us was identifying something that has both a positive and competitive IRR. So we, in order to do that, had kind of three main different ideas in mind. The first one was utilizing incentives. We're going to go into in a minute the kind of two main key incentive structures that we were focusing on through the course of the project. But this was really key in us choosing Eastern Connecticut State University. We wanted to prioritize in our system design areas that would have high savings. So we considered numerous areas, but ultimately, as you'll see later down the line, and you've seen in our project proposal, we ultimately decided on just one for our solar development. And we wanted to, as I mentioned before, have an area that has proactive goals that we could potentially achieve that were aligned with the solar district requirements. So Eastern Connecticut State University, as we'll talk in a little bit, has like some battery kind of goals within their own plans, which was something that was aligned with the solar district goals. Next slide, please.
So now going into more concrete details on how we brought our development philosophy to life, we want to talk a little bit about ECSU's Climate Action Plan, which was published in 2020, and how it inspired us choosing this location. So just a little bit more detail on the district use case. ECSU is a public university in Windham, Connecticut, and it's also the most economically distressed municipality in the state. And it has been known for its commitment to sustainable energy. It has this Institute for Sustainable Energy, but also more recently in the Climate Action Plan, it detailed that it wants to commit to moving its carbon neutrality goal up from 2050 to 2030, and has specifically mentioned within the plan their goals for solar procurement and also storage growth. So they've expressed interest in a combination of on-site installations and off-site purchases. And they've also expressed strong interest in developing a campus microgrid for emergencies, which defined our decision to expand into storage. Next slide, please. So the NRES is Non-Residential Renewable Energy Solutions, and this is a net metering program in Connecticut that incentivizes renewable energy production, which greatly bolstered our solar procurement in the area. So one thing that we'll be diving into more detail is that the ultimate location where we chose to site our solar is Windham Airport. And part of why we can do this is this incentive is flexible in that it permits multiple state, agricultural, and municipal customers to collaborate together to form one cohesive group. So using the netting incentive, the ECSU Airport Partnership exports energy to the grid, and Windham Airport allocates 100% of qualifying excess generation profit to a beneficial account, which in this case is ECSU. Also worth noting is that to make use of this incentive program, we must enter the utility Eversource's request for proposals. However, we are confident that our bid would be accepted because, as already mentioned, ECSU is located in a distressed municipality, and therefore the bid would receive a 40% discount. Next slide, please.
Wonderful. So the second kind of main incentive structure that we really focused on was the Connecticut Energy Storage Solutions programs. This is a battery storage incentive program in Connecticut that incentivizes the development of battery scale storage that will be controlled by the utility during the summer. It has two main incentive components. One is an upfront incentive of 25% of installation and equipment costs, as well as an additional 25% if you're a grid edge customer. That's dependent on if your project will be adjacent to certain lines that are outlined by Eversource, which you can see on the left, Eastern Connecticut State University, and where we would be putting those batteries are. So we would be getting a 50% upfront credit from that 25% base and the 25% grid edge, as that would be on top of the 30% ITC credit for battery storage from the Inflation Reduction Act. So that would come to a total of 80% upfront costs being handled through incentive structures, which is really key to our financials, as Dale will explain a little bit later in the presentation. In addition to that, we would also be receiving a performance incentive for giving control of the battery to Eversource during the summer. This comes to a weighted average of about $157.50 per kilowatt per season. So that is a massive boon, because over the course of the lifetime product for the project, we would also be having an incentive to effectively just have the project there. This is also when operations are at their lowest for the university. So the program ties really well with ECSU's just kind of load usage case. So yeah, next slide, please. Wonderful. So moving on to kind of what our actual project is. We have one single solar installation, which is going to be offsite, as Caroline mentioned, at Wyndham Airport, not super far away from the university. This is going to be the maximum possible size that we are allowed to use under the NRES program. So it's a 5 megawatt AC project that would be able to cover approximately 20% of ECSU's total annual energy usage. In addition to that, we have storage that aligns with the resiliency goals of the university through trying to have a microgrid that will be located on ECSU's campus directly. This will be controlled by Eversource during the summers for reliability purposes, and then during the winter can be used for resiliency, as well as peak load shaving during the winter, spring, and fall months. Next slide, please. So here's a little bit more of a snapshot and some details about the actual system design. For the solar project itself, we have a really high performance ratio of 89%. That'll be about 10,485 solar modules with a specific production of 1482 kilowatt hour per kilowatt peak per year. This is a pretty high performance ratio that's associated with the fact that we have an overbuild that's quite high for our project. It's a PNOM ratio of about 1.26. We're doing this for economic reasons because we're capped at 5 megawatt AC in order to fit within the project. Because of the NRES program, it makes sense to have a higher overbuild. For the actual module manufacturer, we're going with Hanwha Q-cells. Within our project, we are not counting as getting the domestic content requirement, but we think that Hanwha Q-cells is a reliable product that we potentially get it in the future when the actual project could be developed. Our inverter manufacturer is SMA. For our battery manufacturer, we went with Tesla Megapack. We did this because in order to meet the Connecticut Energy Storage Solutions Program requirements, there's a listed set of batteries that are accepted to be able to receive those credits. And Tesla is kind of the main one that would be able to meet our size requirements. For the PV system size, DC, we have 6,291 kilowatts. Battery system size is 4.9 megawatts. And then our total PV footprint is 29,273 meters squared. So by utilizing this kind of single ground mount solar installation off campus, we're able to optimize our total project financials. And then utilizing the grid scale on campus, we can meet the sustainability goals and charge those with the credits that we would be receiving from the off-campus solar, as well as support the overall community a little bit more by giving control of the batteries to Eversource over the summer months, which would kind of provide better support to the grid through reactive power and things of that nature. Next slide, please.
Touching now on the distribution system impact, when we were examining heat capacity maps that were provided by Eversource, we did find that there was limited PV hosting capacity both near the campus and at the airport. So because of that, we'll have to explore potential upgrades. However, we still believe that the potential savings opportunities of this project likely outweigh the impact costs. Just to provide some more detail on what the interconnection process would look like, the distribution network is regulated by the Public Utilities Regulatory Authority, and then Eversource and United Illuminating are providing transmission and distribution. And for the study process, because our projects are it's above 2 megawatts, we would require a $1,000 application fee, and then more specific detail on the interconnection costs would be provided once that study has been completed. Next slide, please. And now touching on our development plan, we wanted to talk about zoning, compliance, and equity. Looking through the zoning ordinances for Windham and also Willimantic, a smaller neighborhood within Windham where ECSU is located, we found that the relevant zones here are Zone C2A for Windham Airport and Zone R6 for ECSU. Neither of these zones have any restrictions on potentially building out solar, and the zoning ordinances specify a specific permitting process that you can pass through for solar development. In addition to that, in terms of compliance, we looked through and assessed the location where Windham Airport is, where we would be planning to build out the solar, and found that there were no wetlands and also no flood risk. Furthermore, because we were building on an airport, we looked more directly into potential regulation governing that and found that since it's a non-towered airport, there would not be a solar glare analysis would not be mandatory, which could potentially speed up the permitting and approval process. And finally, with aesthetic considerations, the location is not co-located with any historical or natural landmarks. On the equity side of things, we also, as already mentioned, noted that ECSU is located in a disadvantaged community, which means it could be eligible for some Justice 40 benefits or programs developed through the larger initiative. One example of this that we discussed in our proposal is the Federal Energy Management Program, which would have potential for local workforce development and would also be able to prioritize small businesses and also minority-owned businesses in terms of who we would choose for solar installation and potential workforce training. There's also ample education opportunities. As already mentioned, ECSU heavily prioritizes sustainability and energy, and it would just be an amazing learning opportunity for students to have this type of these types of projects directly on site. Next slide, please. This is just the project timeline for what we're planning out. As already mentioned, there's site planning, which is identifying the application process and requirements, as well as permitting, in addition to securing offtake and financing, and then eventually design and engineering, operation, and testing. Next slide, please. Yeah.
So here's the financial arrangement for the solar at the airport. The project cost would go to about $10.8 million, as we've estimated. And again, because Windham falls under the low income tax bonus, the ITC jumps to 40%. We estimate a PPA price of 8 cents per kilowatt hour because this project falls in between a large scale commercial as well as a smaller utility scale project. So balancing the 4 cents per kilowatt hour estimate for utility scale projects and the 12 cents per kilowatt hour of commercial. This is the number that we chose to estimate with. And again, because this is offsite solar, we've estimated a site lease rate of about $65,000 per year of the land at the airport from the school or for the developer. We found that doing tax equity and the partnership flip returned better IRR for the developer. So this is the breakdown of the flip agreement with a 46% equity investment from the tax equity partner and a pre-flip share of 70%, which flips to 5% in the target year 6. Next slide, please. Keeping with the partnership flip on the right here, tax equity partner meets their target IRR of 8.5% after an equity investment of about $5 million. And as we can see, the cash equity partner or the developer would return 8.8%. Without tax equity, this number would only be 7.4% for the developer. So we see that tax equity provides significant gains for the developer at hand. Moving to the left, talking about our customer, ECSU, their net savings MPV over the 25-year PPA would be about $9.5 million. The levelized cost of electricity for the 220 gigawatt hours of electricity provided by the system would drop from the 23-cent rate to about 12 cents. And this is using Eversource's utility rate predictions, as you can see in the graph there, the difference between the utility price and the PPA price for these 220 gigawatt hours. Next slide, please. Now looking at the on-site battery system breakdown, again, as Spencer has mentioned, we have the power and capacity detailed here, and Connecticut's massive incentives that give 80% returns, and you can see the values there. Next slide, please.
Right,
Thank you
and
so much.
Yep, we are out of time if you want to wrap up.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening. Our next slide is just a thank you slide. We're willing to answer any questions. Thank you for this opportunity.